hub of all the best and most interesting startups in Latvia. So today we have two panels, and this is the QR code for Slido, where you'll be able to ask your questions from your smartphone. So please scan it. And I'm going to welcome now Glenn Hodgson from Trade Europa, who's going to be our moderator today. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's great to be here in Riga today. Thank you for organising a bit of sunshine for us as well. This is fantastic. Very well received. So today we'll be looking at the future of work, and also more specifically the starting with the Platform Work Directive and how this is being implemented in Latvia and the Baltics. We're going to have two panels. The first one's going to be joining me here to discuss a little bit about the Platform Work Directive. Very happy to be able to have Matīss Kodoliņš from Abillio, who will be part of the discussions here today, and also Mindaugas Liutvinskas from Wolt, who's come across. We have the opportunity to speak to him. Yes, thank you. Yeah, let's have a round of applause as well, even more importantly. And last but not least, we will have Kaspars Gorkšs from the LDDK, which is the Latvian Employers Confederation. Good to have you all here. And maybe I can just sort of start this session with a few words about the Platform Work Directive itself, to sort of give a bit of context and set the scene in terms of what's happening, because the European Union wanted new rules to improve the working conditions of people in the gig economy. And this was a request that came from the certain heads of state and government, but also the European Commission and the European Parliament, to basically look at these topics. And it was way back in December 2021 that we had the proposal for a directive on platform work. And discussions were very intense. And the Platform Work Directive was finally adopted in October of last year. And with many of the most important and many of the most contentious parts actually taken out of the directive, which means that there's more impetus and more elements to be put into the national implementation, national discussions. Very happy to have a representative from the Economy Ministry here, and also the Welfare Ministry that we've been discussing with, to be able to help partner and share some of the thoughts and ideas about how the legislation will look, and also share some of the best practice from the other countries as well. Because since this was adopted in October 2024, countries have 2 years to implement this. So before this October 2026 deadline, there's a lot of work to be done. And Sweden, more importantly, Lithuania, are the most advanced in terms of the activities and the steps that they've taken. And so Mindaugas has a double role here, sort of reporting on sort of best practice and where things are in the most advanced state so far, but also talking about how we should be sort of doing these things from a practical perspective and putting things in the right dimension. And because the fact that sort of the European Commission has said that over 43 million people are actually working in platform and gig economy activities in the European Union, and this is a figure that is growing very, very fast. So it's really important that a broader share of the population and the workforce actually can benefit and have the sort of the labour rights, but also the social protection, that really sort of looking at this, but also making sure that legitimate entrepreneurs, platform workers, and freelance talent are actually treated as such and not limited or hindered in the work that they're doing. And also, we do not want to see sort of open talent pushed into a traditional 9-to-5 arrangement either. Often there's this unintentional risk that talent could be pushed against their will into a format which would not suit them, and they'd lose their ability to be flexible and lose the ability to earn money when, where, and how they want. So it's basically against that background that we've got sort of this first panel in place here. And maybe if we can sort of turn to Mindaugas to give a little bit of an approach as well about where things are, how we're looking at implementing the directive, and maybe some of the things to look at, but also some of the things to avoid as well, and some of the things you're seeing from your perspective.
Right, thanks for the intro, Glenn. And first of all, pleasure to be here, to be part of this event. I'm Mindaugas, I'm covering the Baltic states at Wolt from the kind of public policy regulatory perspective. So I have the benefit to kind of refer to context in both Lithuania and Estonia in this, and I guess there are good practices or not so good practices in the region that we can keep in mind also for the Latvian debate. As Glenn mentioned, the European level directive decision was, as always, a matter of compromise, and some of the contentious issues, sensitive issues, were left for the member states to decide, like the presumption of employment, some other things. So there is indeed a lot of things that the national authorities need to decide. It is sensitive, and I guess a key first point I wanted to mention is that the authorities in any country, including in Latvia, need to strive for a balanced approach, because the balance was maintained in the directive. So at the national level, we should also avoid kind of having a too rigid or approach on the ground. And why is that so? First and foremost, I guess because the directive doesn't say anything about killing off the, so to say, ecosystem of platforms. And it doesn't say anything about all the people moving into one or other form of employment. So we need to bear this in mind, and also think about the potential broader economic effects if we don't get the balance right. Because I guess we can all agree that platforms as such in the economy, they're a source of innovation, a source of creating new business models, a source of tax revenue, a source of employment and earning possibilities for people who want to join the platform economy, for merchants who want to partner with it. So we have to be careful. Policymakers have to be careful not to do a balance which would have unintended consequences, negative unintended consequences. Now, talking a bit about the experiences or the approaches we see in Estonia and in Lithuania that could be useful for the Latvian context, maybe I'll start with Estonia, which is, to my knowledge, not very advanced in the transposition discussion as such. They don't have a draft on the table. They started thinking about it, similarly, I guess, as in Latvia. But from my dialogue with the authorities, a key takeaway that emerged, at least my takeaway, is that the government will aim for minimalistic transposition. So not gold plating the directive, not adding additional complexities on the ground, which is something that happens from time to time in some countries. And the key goal of the authorities in that country is to basically try to maintain the current flexible labor framework as much as you can. So not making any fundamental changes, just trying to do a minimalistic transposition. And I think it's a sensible strategy. It will allow likely Estonia to maintain its flexible labor market, which has served the country pretty well for the previous decades. So that's on the kind of good practice on the strategic level, I would say. Now, on the process level, we have Lithuania. We are discussing the draft laws. We have them on the table. We have been involved with the ministries and the other stakeholders for at least 2 months now. It's still not finished, of course. The text is moving. There are a lot of sensitivities that still need to be addressed. But what the good practice was is basically what we can call a pre-consultation phase, informal pre-consultation before the draft proposals going to the tripartite council or the kind of formal consultation, public consultation, which allowed in a series of informal conversations with the platforms, unions, authorities to talk about the most sensitive issues and to already at this point deal with some of the most sensitive issues in the text, making it more balanced. I'm not saying it's fully balanced or perfect. We're still working on it, and there are issues which need to be addressed, but the process itself is good, I guess. It's a good practice, which could also be replicated in some other countries. Now, Glenn asked what should be avoided. So I guess over-regulation of the platform economy should be avoided. Gold plating should be avoided. So not adding sensitive issues like, I don't know, migration to the already very complex package of labor market regulation. I know it's tempting sometimes for politicians to do so, but let's keep in mind the original scope of the directive. And then I guess let's just focus on where the most sensitive issues are. And in my perspective, the most sensitive issue is the presumption of employment. So what are the criteria? What are the points which distinguish between a situation when a person active in the platform economy working as a self-employed person, as an entrepreneur, versus a case where he is employed under the kind of conventional employment contract. But maybe I stop here because I covered quite a lot of ground, and then on the other question we can jump into these
Absolutely.
issues.
Well, let's pass it across to Matīss here in terms of the setup as well, and some of the thoughts you have about sort of the platform work and the evolution that's taking place at the moment, and just give a little sort of your initial thoughts on where things are headed and what should be considered.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm a co-founder of Abillio and also tax advisor, so I will cover mostly about the taxes because it's something I know. And one thing I think it's crucial that the freelancers should have some choice whether they are willing to be employees or keep them like self-employed, because my son occasionally curious for Wolt, and I don't think he's willing to be like employee, and he will get less money in the end. So it's kind of freelancer's choice that should be also implicated in the legislation, because if it's like in the directive, it's nothing about that. And other thing is minimum salary here in Latvia. You should pay minimum salary to every employee, or not minimum salary, but taxes on the minimum salary. If they are like employees and receiving less than minimum salary, Wolt, for example, will need to pay taxes on all the amount. So it's something also need to think about the local legislation and how it's approached in this sense. Yeah, and maybe think about other social security options which are alternative to government proposed, because I don't know, we all know that people are aging and the social security system is pushed to the limits in some time, and will it cover or not cover all our needs? And maybe the alternative choice for the platform workers, something to think about it in the process. Yeah, that's from my side.
And Kaspars, you working on this topic. It's an important evolution of the labour market here in Latvia. So it'd be great to hear about sort of what's your perspective on what's happening and where we should be going to harness the benefits and avoid some of the missteps here.
Hi, yeah, I represent Employers Confederation of Latvia. Everyday life, I represent the big companies in Latvia. So the platform work is probably not something that we deal on an everyday basis. But we in LDDK realize that it is a form of labor, and it is a form of labor that is attractive to younger generation. Even now, dealing with more conventional forms of labor, we see that people want more flexibility, more freedom, more, I would say, artistic approach of for work. And on the other side, we have this possibility to do that with the platform work. So we see it as a evolution of conventional labor forms into something else, something new. We are a partner of government in the tripartite council. So we are the organization who will have a discussion on these issues at some point to tell what has been going on so far. Then we had the first chat, I think, around a year ago, first approach to the welfare Ministry of Welfare, where we had a brief discussion how it would go, and the response was that it's coming. Sometimes it's coming. So we're still waiting for that. But I agree on that the earlier you start these discussions, the better outcome you can get out of this potential regulation. And what makes me worried is the way the legislations are built in Latvia, because especially with some of the ministries, you tend to wait till the end, and then you just take everything in that somebody throws you at. And that is something that we from LDDK would like to avoid happening with this, because as I mentioned before, we see it as a potential of new employment forms, which could introduce to different work environments as well. Because normally at the moment we straight away think of Wolt and Bolt and great marketing guys, but we are quite sure that it will creep into other occupations as well, and it will bring their benefits. We agree that social aspects have to be taken into account, but in the same way, to demand the flexibility of your employer, it comes at some sort of cost as well, and I think this needs have to be balanced on both sides. You wrote everything down, I think.
Absolutely everything down, and we've been recorded as well, so nothing escapes, Kaspars. I've got to say on these things. Be careful; it'll be used against you. But when we're looking at sort of the right approach on this as well, I mean, we've got sort of Mindaugas, you were talking a little bit about sort of the presumption of employment and maybe moving into the algorithmic management piece as well. What's the kind of approach we should be taking here? Is it criteria? What are the elements that we should be sort of including to make sure this is done properly?
Yeah. I guess fundamentally, and building a bit upon what was said, any regulation should safeguard the possibility of different kind of choices for the person to choose the business model or the employment model, the working relation that works the best for him, that fits the person's needs and situation. So I guess that's kind of a starting point in the PWD discussion, that we should not limit the choices. We should enable them and open up the economic opportunities, because that's also good for the economy as a whole. When discussing about criteria for presumption of employment and the overall scope of this directive, we should definitely not just think about 2 or 3 business models like Wolt or Bolt, which is something that comes to mind immediately, but already now
good marketing.
Yeah, we try. Already now we see that the way it's framed, the directive, it could cover platforms in different segments of the economy. And we have to keep it into account when we discuss about the criteria for the presumption of employment or any other element, algorithmic transparency. We see platforms of a smaller scale already operating in sectors like beauty services, in sectors like IT, even legal, house cleaning. I mean, it's a different segment and very varied business model. So it's a whole ecosystem. We need to keep it in mind. It's not just 1 or 2 players. Maybe we're speaking up loudly because we're kind of the first in line, I guess, to deal with this regulation. But it's a broader effect. That's something that we need to keep in mind. And now going to the criteria. So we think it's a good idea to have some criteria written down in legislation, even though it's not an obligation for member states to have it. It's a choice. And we think that it's quite useful to think about what sort of criteria we should have, taking into account 3 key principles. So that's clarity, effectiveness, and kind of universal nature of the criteria. Now, in terms of clarity, very simple principle, everyone around the table should have the same understanding of what the criteria means. The platforms, the policymakers, the agencies, the unions, the workers, we all have to understand in the same way what it means. And trust me, from my experience in Lithuania, not always the case. We have very similar, very different readings of the same text. And usually, I guess ideally, the criteria would be easily replied on a yes or no basis. So do you fulfill that or you don't? Then on the effective nature. Why do we need criteria? Basically for them to act as a filter, to filter out the actual kind of bogus or untrue self-employment, because that was one of the goals of the directive. And at the same time, leave it be when it comes to the actual modes of self-employment or the actual kind of self-entrepreneurs, right? And for this, we need some sort of a basic criteria which focus on the actual differences between what's what's in the working model of an employed person versus a self-employed person. And here we have a good precedent, a legal precedent, the so-called Yodel case by the European Court of Justice. It's already there. It draws the line on like 4 fundamental rights or principles which distinguish the self-employed person. So, for instance, the right to accept and decline tasks, the right to choose working hours, the right to use subcontractors, the right to work for competitors. So, for instance, a few platforms. You can work for Wolt and Bolt at the same time, right? It means that you are actually genuinely self-employed. So we see these issues as a starting point for any government, including in Latvia, that this is the base for the criteria. This is also the case, by the way, in Lithuania. We have it in the draft included as part of the criteria. And then the third principle is universal nature. As I mentioned, we should not just focus on 2 business models or 1 business model. We have to make sure that the criteria are generic enough to cover the whole of business models, the variety we have of it in the market. So that's something we need to keep in mind. And then the final point on the presumption of employment, which is kind of the core thing for us, is the threshold for triggering this presumption. So when does the agency, which is given the mandate, come in and say, we need to assess if this is a working relationship or is this a genuine self-employment? So we think that we have to have a proportionate threshold. So it should not be too low. We argue for not having like 1 out of 6 threshold because it might lead to unintended consequences of misclassification of genuine self-employed people or create administrative burden for all sides, the agencies, the platforms, the unions. So we need to be proportionate about it and we need to be smart about it. And where we try to push is basically having a majority or let's say 2 out of 5 criteria to make it realistic, to make it applicable in practice. But yeah, in general, pretty much that's the way we try to approach it. We try to be proactive and clear in explaining how we see it actually being implemented in practice, because it's one thing discussing something on paper, but also from the platform side, we always think of, so how will we implement it? Do we have the means and the data and the instruments to implement it? And I guess this gives a bit of realism to the discussion with the policymakers, which is, I guess, always good.
Absolutely. And Matíss, in terms of your perspective here as well, you have, in terms of the services that you offer, you have everything from sort of artists, musicians, all the way through to IT programmers and the rest of it. So you actually, sort of building on what Mindaugas said there, you've got the full range of open talent freelancers covering a range of sectors as well. Are there any things that we should be sort of avoiding within that, or what are you hearing from your partners and customers on these issues?
I think they are not aware of that directive currently because, and we think that we are not gonna fly under the directive and be the ones who will be under this regulation, but still, as you mentioned, that it should be clear what are the consequences for each implementation step, and then we can understand whether it will be applicable on us or not. And also it should be clear the criteria which is given, that everybody understands how it will be implemented, because when you said that the regulations are always how you read them, because it's as laws, you can read from one side and the other side, and make it more clearly and understandable to everybody. It's the way to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kaspars, from your perspective as well, these are angles as well that you'll be looking at, as you were saying before, in terms of the implications for the broader group as well, and to avoid sort of the unintended misclassification or drawing people in, and kind of the idea of protecting people who don't want protecting is one of the things we need to avoid as well.
We had I had an interesting experience because we had I had the privilege to be in a discussion with one of the researchers for Wolt and Bolt drivers, and the whole research, these people, they said that they're happy, they want, but the outcome of this paper was that they are forced to work, and they have no right to strike. And when I was reading that, there were two different parts. There are people who actually want this flexible way to work, and they want some sort of freedom how they work. But it seems that we try to push a stricter regulation on them. And here in Latvia, we have one of the strictest labor laws possible. So if that gets mirrored to platform work, then probably the platform work will die down, and some other form will come in instead of that. But we have one of the strongest regulations. So for both these forms to be successful, to make a competitive, growing business environment, the regulation has to be one that supports that. And one time and time again, we see that people want that flexible choice of work, even if we are in discussions of changing our labor law. Most of the suggestions we get actually from employees is that they want to make more flexible on how they work, time they work in, who decides how they're working, so they can do it themselves. So we see that trend, and that actually is already covered by a platform work, which again, with most with more social maybe security, but with not more regulation. Because if we're going to over-regulate here in Latvia, we are very good at that, and that will not work in favor. So for us, we would love to have notes of Mindaugas, and so we maybe avoid some of the issues firsthand. We would like to start the dialogue as quickly as possible, so we don't wait till the end and then just do something because we have to. And I already spoke with the Ministry of Economics that I would like Ministry of Economics be much more involved in this process as well, because I think that is something that would help Latvian economy, because we have phenomenon of shadow economy in this country. And I think that's one of the tools as well that actually can first of all measure how many people we actually work in this form, and then probably try to figure out how it can help to make that less as well.
Yeah, Mindaugas, yes, please.
Yeah, jumping in on this, happy to share notes and points and experiences from other countries. And yeah, let's try not to kill off the platform economy. I guess it's a valuable segment of the economy, creating value added. You mentioned kind of preferences of people working in the platform. So just wanted to also flag that at Wolt, we have regular surveys that we do for our career partners. We do it together with Copenhagen Economics, which is a third party, kind of giving credibility to the whole effort. And we think that it offers a few valuable insights and data points that we also try to emphasize for policymakers, because at least I personally believe that in policymaking, it's better not to assume, but to try to get some sort of data points. The ones that you can have, maybe not universally, not Eurostat data on everything, but at least some data points. So maybe just two things I wanted to flag from this survey, which we're doing regularly. One is that over 85% of couriers, specifically in Latvia, that we surveyed, prefer being self-employed versus being an employee. For the exact reasons you mentioned, for the flexibility of work, for the ability to choose the tasks, the amount of hours being worked, the means of working, and the possibility to supplement it with other activities. Many of the courier partners working with us have other activities, other employment. There may be students, or they have some other duties in the household. And this platform work, the flexible nature of it, allows them to combine what they're doing with additional earning opportunities, which is, I think, a good thing. And the second point I wanted to mention, illustrating the compatibility side, is that on average in Latvia, courier partners working with Wolt deliver for 8 hours per week. So that's like 1 day out of a week, which illustrates well that this is supplemental. This is not something that the majority of the people treat and use as the key or the sole earning opportunity or the sole source of employment. And we have to keep it in mind when we discuss the need for additional social guarantees. I mean, it's a discussion, of course, we can have, but we should look at the data. Are we solving a perceived problem or a real problem?
Yeah, I think it's a good point there. Matīss, please go ahead.
Yeah, and my thoughts on that is that the labor market is changing due to COVID, which allowed to work like remotely, and people are more and more going to freelance, and we see that with Abillio, and I think it's the trend which will not gonna reverse, and it's getting more and more popular. And with the AI, I think that the labor market will change dramatically, and the self-employed or versus the employee will prevail in some time in the future.
What about the element of how many people want to do this? And this is what's backed up by our petition that we did as well. We've got over 13,500 signatories, and it's overwhelming the data on this, that people want more freedom, choice, flexibility about how they earn money. And interestingly, sort of over 500 of those respondees came from Latvia as well, which I think is an interesting piece to share there. I'm just thinking about, we had the Slido piece here. If there's any questions we can actually sort of bring up here that we can go through, we can bring to the panel and give our thoughts and ideas upon that. Thank you, Anna. That's very, very helpful indeed. Okay, so if the flexible worker has a full-time job where he pays taxes and platform work is a side job, should he be classified as an employee under the new Platform Work Directive?
Well, this brings us to my point, I guess, on the national discretion of setting the parameters for who and when, under what conditions, is deemed an employee versus a self-employed. The overall principle set out in the directive is that there is this element of control and direction. And if a platform is seen as exercising both control and direction over a given person working with the platform, then I guess that's a starting point for assessing maybe there is an employment relationship. But the essence and the gist of the matter is that countries can set specific, very clear criteria for this presumption of employment based on which you assess the nature of the employment. And then see, maybe Latvia decides to set very flexible or very strict criteria, and the answer to that question would depend on what's in the legislation. What we try to argue for, as I mentioned, is that we need to have kind of universal, clear, and effective criteria, and that we need to keep in mind the realities of the market, that not all of these people, or not even the majority of the people being active in the platform economy, use these opportunities as the kind of one sole or the key source of income, earnings, or activity.
And Kaspars, what do you feel from the sort of the Employers Federation side of this? What's your sort of viewpoint or your gut feeling on this?
On what?
Basically, if an individual has a full-time job and
okay, yeah.
Should that side job be treated as an employee for those activities?
From a logical point of view, side job is a side job. It's not my regular job. But yeah, as bureaucratic it sounds, it's all about criteria, we had a similar issue actually with I used to work in sports for a while, and we had actually a similar issue with how individual athletes are basically athletes in individual sports are getting paid. So they were getting paid by different sort of rules. But then I think there was a ruling in court that it has all the elements of employment, so they had to pay all the taxes, which reduced their income massively, and in the end they had to change the way these athletes are getting remunerated. So I think it's to establish clear definitions what that is, and then work out on the criteria how it gets established. Because normally in Latvia the criteria comes to either how much you earn a year, what's your yearly income, and then from that it gets decided if it counts as a job or not, and then if it has the elements of conventional employment, and then our strict labor laws kicks in. So these would be the two challenging things to establishing criteria as well.
I guess as people take on more portfolio careers or jobs, as opposed to like the full-time 9 to 5, they maybe have sort of several projects. This is going to be something that's going to sort of change, I guess, over time.
I think I would love to have some sort of side job I could work in. I don't know, as a not Batman, but someone else, but something you can do on the side, and that I think that there's so many things in life that people can do, and it's nice that they can get paid for that. And I don't think that I already applied for that. They were refused. I had a plan during COVID, but they refused. but yeah, I think the freedom to do whatever you want is kind of what might make people happier.
Yeah.
And I think that the opportunity to rate everyone in stars, it's great. I could use it in my office as well. I would love it.
And also the question, okay, will this directive limit the rise of new flexible work platforms? For instance, janitors for hire. It's already hard to build such platforms under the current laws. So basically, we need more of a regime to have this entrepreneurship to be the catalyst for new platforms, helping people find work, but also matching the people who want this kind of new local talent with the people who are seeking the jobs.
I may start on this. I guess once again, it depends on what's the balance of transposition of the directive. If it's too rigid, it might curtail the development of new innovative business models and platforms. So I guess the smart way to approach this, understanding that the labor market and the economy in general is always changing, it's innovating, and it's producing new business models, is to keep it flexible, to open as many doors as possible to the future, because I think it's not a good practice to change, for instance, the labor code each year or each couple of years, just because there is like a new business model, or there's like a lobby group that comes to the policymaker saying that the legislation is too strict for this, you need to change it. And so maybe try having a systemic approach rather than doing it ad hoc, which then gives you a bit of a longer term perspective, which unlocks potential opportunities down the road, which we are maybe not fully even aware of today.
Or maybe use Abillio as your partner, therefore you can get rid of a lot of the problems, because you can solve all the headaches for new platforms, but also individuals.
Yeah, that's our main goal. But I think Europe is over-regulated. It's tending to create more and more directives because there are a lot of people who are working on that, and in the end they are creating laws and directives, etc. So we should simplify that, and I think with Wolt and Bolt, my life is more convenient, and I like it because I can do it, which I needed to go myself to grocery, etc. So it's kind of the platform should be created more and more because it creates better life for everybody.
I think it's very interesting because every research you read, I haven't read anything that someone asks to over-regulate the platform work. It's all about freedom, possibility to do something you like, but the outcome is always some regulation that tries to restrict it, which in this case, it's even more obvious than in other, because I agree with over-regulation of Europe, but in the same time, this issue, I think it stems, it's very hard to find data behind it, why it's actually this discussion is so active and necessary. But for platforms, I think the competitiveness in general brings growth, and I think there is a potential for these platforms, or either platforms that work in general, or actually big companies use the similar approach in their businesses as well, and to build their own platforms. It's something that I think it is unavoidable, and it's just how to use it in our favor and not to kill off with regulation or whatever crazy stuff we like to do.
Don't kill things with regulation is a very good response, and I think we can all sign up to that. One last question here in terms of the setup. why should we not think of the aspects of migration? Isn't that a big group of currently self-employed people who may eventually lack social benefits? So the idea of migration, is this one of the sort of the issues we should be thinking together with this? Is it a larger proportion of the workforce from a sort of a migrant background who get involved in the gig economy and the platform economy? What do we think about this?
I might start because I think the question refers to one of the points I made. And the point that I was trying to make is that we should be careful not to add additional complex issues to an already complex directive, which were not in the scope of this directive. So migration is not in any way covered by the PWD. That's clear. Of course, national authorities can choose to add whatever they want, but that's usually what we call gold plating and related things. So we have to be careful about it. Of course, if there is a thing that policymakers need to solve, some sort of a problem on the ground, maybe it's a good chance. But I'm quite skeptical or cautious about such an approach, in combining different things into one, trying to solve all the problems with one instrument. Now, from Wolt's perspective, I would just say, yes, quite a sizable amount of courier partners working with Wolt in Latvia are foreign-born. Not the majority, but quite a sizable amount. That's kind of, I guess, a good illustration of how these people find economic opportunities in the Latvian labor market, in the formal economy, that arguably would not be there without the platforms. So that's at least the way I tend to approach the issue. And as for social guarantees, I would suggest not thinking in a sort of a black and white perspective that, if you're individually employed, you have no social guarantees. If you're employed under a contract, it's all good. Because, there might be ways in between, I guess, and we as a platform are also open to consider. We even have some precedents. So, for instance, in the Greek city of Thessaloniki, we have just recently signed the first collective bargaining agreement with sort of a association of individually employed couriers. So it's a good illustration how certain additional guarantees can be compatible with the flexible working model of being self-employed. So you can be entitled to additional guarantees without being employed under a contract. And this is sort of the innovative thinking, I guess, we need to have, and not just be stuck in the boxes of the old kind of labor market regulation dichotomies, yes or no, but look for alternatives way forward.
Excellent. Any further comments on this piece before we close things off?
Migration? As long as platforms don't give out visas, I think it's all right. I think it's better to actually separate these issues, because it won't. Every time you will mention migration, you can kill off or make it complicated for any issues. So migration is one thing, and the platform work is something totally separate.
Yeah, and I think that the couriers are mostly students, and they will most likely go somewhere else, maybe in Europe, but maybe home where they came from. And to pay pension for them here in Latvia, it doesn't make sense. So it's kind of also not, in their perspective, not understandable why they should do that.
But even to think from the way that someone would migrate to a country to work for Bolt, I don't think that it's a right way around to do it. Again, if you mix up these two issues together, it will not come to a fruitful discussion. It's a part of economy. We can agree on certain things that are real. We have tangible data on that, and then just how to make it work more effectively and safe for everyone else involved.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for these thoughts, insights, and sort of sharing your perspectives on these important topics. And this is the start of the process. It's certainly not the end. We're very much going to sort of collect our thoughts and ideas and feed them back into the Ministry of Economy, but also welfare as well, and establish ourselves as a partner as we move now through to October 2026 and beyond. So it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing this, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
second part of the discussions when we have the sort of panel number 2, and we're going to basically welcome 2 new people to the stage here. First of all, we're going to have Mārtiņš Viļums, who's the co-founder of Abillio. Good to see you, Mārtiņš. And also Igor Uhaņs, who's the innovation lead at Helve.eu. Good to see you there, Igors. Now, gentlemen, we've heard a lot about sort of the Platform Work Directive a little bit earlier, but if we can move on a little bit further on to new developments in the future of work as well, because, you know, we're seeing these developments now with people choosing more sort of portfolio careers, looking at flexible work arrangements, and looking at some differences from the traditional 9 to 5. So, Mārtiņš, if you can sort of just give us a little bit of an overview, first of all, how's the future of work shaping out, and what's the sort of the key developments and aspects that you're looking at and witnessing?
Yeah, sure. Mainly the reason why Abillio was born is the general shift in how people work. And main reasons, as Matīss already mentioned, the first kicker was COVID and the rise of different collaboration tools, which was like one of the, I would say, fourth industrial revolution, as we could say, in service economy and the way how people collaborate. So I think this was one of the first initiators. The second is the generational shift, because if we look at the Gen Z, Gen X, even starting from millennials, we see that people are not willing to choose the traditional work, 9 to 5 work. That's the tendency across the world, and we cannot resist it. So it's what's happening, and you probably see that every generation alpha, they want to be influencers, they want to do vibe coding with AI, and they don't want to do you know, traditional work. They want to be musicians, they want to be artists, and maybe that's the way to go, because with AI and industrial advancements, I think there's going to be plenty for everyone, and I hope we'll be able to work 4-hour workdays. So that's eventually going to come. People are willing to choose to whom they work with, not under one client, but maybe 5 clients. I can be a fractional CMO. I can work for 5 different companies across the world. I don't want to sit in one place. Where do I pay taxes? That's the question, yeah? Okay, where's my tax residency? That's another thing that's not resolved. How do we track where the people's tax residency are? If he spends 3 months in Latvia, 3 months in Iceland, 3 months in Thailand, he works with clients in the US, he needs a VAT number or he doesn't. Does he need to register or not? Like, there's so many different new developments which fail to fall under existing categories that we have under legal framework and tax framework. So that's one thing we need to look at, and also the decentralization and rise of flexible work platforms, which give people opportunity to earn extra. So I just saw on morning news that 53% of Latvian citizens have earned extra during the last 12 months. These sums are not big, like 200 euros maybe, but they have done it. And even school kids, they want to work in summers. And I know I'm also a mentor in Digital Accelerator of Latvia and Startup School, and I mentor new teams that are building platforms. They want to build platforms for instance, I can just give you some couple of examples. Like, one is a platform that will help musicians collaborate. So if the band in the US is looking for a bass player, they can hire someone in Latvia, ask them to record the partition, and then, you know, just send it over the internet. Second was they want to build a platform for janitors because companies need janitor only once per week, and it doesn't make sense for them to hire those janitors, right? Same with the window cleaning services. Same with the oncologic patients' care at home. So we can go on and on and on. And from dog walkers to private tutors, there's another platform that's building a place to connect private tutors with pupils. So also those pupils, they want to actually be private tutors, but they're not 16, so how can they earn money, right? So there's plenty of things to talk about, but one of the general shifts, I think, is the rise of AI, and I will maybe ask Igors to continue.
Well, as you said, AI is here, right? and it helps us to work less, earn more if you're eager to. And I'm not sure how can I build up on your statement. I can say thank you because I remember 2021 when we had this shift in authors that from Ministry of Economics, and thank you guys for Abillio. If I wasn't the first client, I may be one of those few guys who remember the old days, and maybe I've maxed out my friend invitations because when people sign through my link, I don't get no more those icons of them.
Like that. But yeah, do you think, just to continue on what I started, do you think there's going to be a rise of single entrepreneurs who will do everything with the help of AI and just hire freelancers as interim teams, ad hoc teams for micro tasks, marketing, sales, some stuff that AI cannot do?
Yeah, that thing is already here. I know of a few people, but only one of them is like really singlepreneur. So he's the only solo person, like solopreneur they're called. Mostly the shift is towards smaller teams. Our team also has gotten way smaller than it was like 2 years ago. And some small core teams can do a bunch of stuff for a bunch of different brands. And so we get to earn more and working less.
And that's an interesting piece as well, Igor, in terms of the approach there. I think how prepared is the market? Because there's individuals like yourself and some of the sort of the startups, OPCs, a lot of companies talk about integrating technology and AI, but they more talk about that than actually the bigger organizations that actually use it. How do they need to sort of develop and move ahead, would you say?
Yeah, Glenn, thanks. That's what you said is mainly true. People are very slow to adapt technology. This is comparable to how quick were we to adapt a smartphone from a button phone. So that took a bunch of years. Now in like 2-3 years, we see that AI has caught up. People are less scared than they were, for example, with cloud first tech revolution. And people always ask me, but where's my data and blah, blah, blah. And where's your data now? What do you use, SharePoint? Where's your data now? People do not know. They do not care because they trust the system. And if you read through the terms and conditions of tool usage, you would know that your data is in Frankfurt. Maybe the same place underground, maybe the same box as your Google Drive or SharePoint.
Yeah, but I think one of the next questions is like, will this AI takeover, how will it affect employment? So many people will be laid off. We see it in Microsoft and OpenAI and big companies. They are letting people go, and I see one of the tendencies will be these talent will have to find work, right?
Yeah, and such platforms like Abillio come in handy because people need money and they can help other people. If we help other people, some other people may want to pay us. And as I see it, it's just a great impulse for spawning a bunch of new companies, a bunch of new opportunities, a bunch of new ventures, investment ventures, and yeah, obviously, if you lay off like thousands of people, they have to eat something. So either they change their lifestyle, maybe they become farmers. I know a guy from Ireland who has worked in Google, TikTok, somewhere else, Microsoft, and something else. Then he became a bus driver for a year, just to take a break.
These elements are sort of possible, and I think that Igor, I tend to share your optimism there as well. If 10 jobs are lost, then probably 20 or 30 will be created out of this, and maybe some of the roles companies, organizations haven't ever been created yet. But I think we're sort of giving birth to a new opportunities and a whole new group of sectors that we should be more focusing on that than trying to reinvent the past in this kind of perspective as well.
totally agree. So it is what it is.
And Matíss, in terms of Abillio and the role that you have as well, how are you facilitating this future? Because I guess the sort of the companies and entrepreneurs want to do what they do best. They don't want to think about sort of the payroll, the compliance, all these kind of issues. They want to leave it to a trusted partner in the same way that we don't really care where our data is, where the cloud is. We want to sort of just know that it's there, it works, and it avoids the problems as opposed to knowing the details.
Yeah, so there are plenty of employer of record companies we've seen in last years, like Deal.com, Oyster, and many more. And I think it's sorted in terms of full-time employment agreements. So this is covered. But if we look at freelance work, there's one big problem. So freelancer is solopreneur. So he has to manage finding clients, doing customer relationship, creating invoices, drafting contracts, chasing late payments. And actually, he has to somehow find the time to do the actual work, right? Yeah. For whatever it is, like coding or graphic designer or whatever. So it's a bit too much for a one-person business. So governments, lawmakers, maybe they have created some really good grounds for them to prosper, but there's always more and more barriers. Like you have to go and register, you have to calculate taxes, you have to pay them in time, which is also a problem for most of them, because they forget, right, at the end of the year, and they have spent it all, and they are not confident if they will have clients in December or not. So their money flow is also not very secure, right? And I think we should be able to give a framework where platforms, I'm talking now about highly skilled work, like digital work, as I mentioned, that platforms can be intermediaries in tax collection and payment. And they can be intermediaries between clients and freelancers, which is what we Abillio do. And maybe it's not very traditional way, but there are plenty of agent of record companies also in Estonia and in Latvia. And I see that there is a demand, especially if you look at the spheres like influencers, for instance, or actors for casting agencies, people just creating content and selling them to brands, and also promotional agencies, event agencies, translation offices. You can name a lot, which actually struggle how to do these payments to because they need to grow their team ad hoc. They have a big project, like imagine production company, they need to film ad, and they need to grow their team from 5 to 100 people, yeah. So they're doing these author contracts, autoratlīdzības, but they actually are this producer team with which I'm talking with their 4-people team. And to draft 100 autoratlīdzības, it's just impossible for them. And then they also have to pay taxes. So I think we need to find solutions where platforms can pay taxes on behalf of freelancers and also help with contracts and chasing late payments, etc. And also this new directive, the AC7 directive, which means that Fiverr and Upwork has to report freelancer income to state revenue services, which also will spawn a bunch of problems, I guess, in near future, because a lot of people are receiving money from OnlyFans, from all of these platforms, and not paying any taxes. So if Fiverr and Upwork could pay taxes in Latvia, I think they would, because they're already charging 20% from them, right? So this is the big shift in the way we work, and I can just give you some more statistics that from our user base, which is 14,000 people, in Latvia there are 5,000 freelancers, 30% are using Abillio invoicing service on monthly basis, and 72% of all of these people, they already have full-time jobs. Okay. So this is a side business for them. This is like the way how to earn extra without going through all the registration hustle and everything. Yeah, I maybe talk too much.
No, not at all. I think it's important to be able to give sort of the context and how important it is, and of course the things that are affecting individuals, but also how big this is, and of course the barriers that are being faced. And Igor, from your perspective as well, how is it looking in terms of developments, in terms of the technology as well? What's the kind of the new channels or the technologies that are going to be used to be able to facilitate more work, future of work, and productivity, entrepreneurship as well?
I can't tell you like specific examples. Agentic AI, if you believe it so. So in different labs, they run different experiments and researchers write different papers. So for example, Mistral, which is a French company, believes that we are shifting towards agentic AI. So we will have some specific functions done by AI agents, which are autonomous. For example, I don't know, answering emails, drafting contracts based on your form entrances, etc. So what people hate to do, for example, make a new agreement based on what the input data is. So AI could do that, right? Then again, a different lab, Anthropic, which is San Francisco based, they believe that we are shifting towards more assistants as AI. So AI becomes a tool like Excel or calculator or Photoshop. So where human is the one making the decision.
But it's facilitating that and making it much more easier, so by simple prompts you can create things, whether it's sort of content, do your contracts, do your content, whether it's sort of the written material that you need as well. This is something that can be facilitated and made a lot easier then through the technology. So it's like having a smart resource that you can rely on to make things better.
Yeah, indeed. But if we're not talking about the digital world, but quite real world, where maybe I can be struck by a drunk driver, did he use AI at that moment? So, for example, we use Google Maps or Waze every day, which is an AI technology. Then again, there are self-driving cars. And this is about agentic versus assistant, where agentic is self-driving, while assistant is your Google Maps live stream. And therefore, who will bear responsibility? Like for the most cases, if you are struck by a robot, most probably you were wrong, because robots make mistakes way less than people. Then again, if maybe a policeman or first aid driver is late to somewhere, who is responsible, him or Google Maps he used? Probably the person, right? Because we entrusted the person with the stuff. So nobody has canceled laws, and if you do lawful stuff, nobody cares if it's done with AI, without AI. How much time did it take? We want to purchase goods and products delivered to us quickly, in the right sense and best price, and nobody really cares if this song was generated or made in FL Studio or, I don't know, Ableton or something. We just care about the end product.
Is that the way we're shifting more and more? We're thinking less about the process and more about the results, and more value. And this is something that probably goes back to the labor market as well, focusing more on the value as opposed to roles and process. Is this sort of the way that we're going in this sector? So the more we can use technology, the more value we can create and the more impact we can have.
On one hand, sure. Then again, who decides on the value? The customer, right?
Yeah.
And there, I think we'll get a lot of crafts come back, because people would value crafts much more than before. And for example, we have an audience here, and some of those guys really value handcrafted or tailored clothes.
Right.
And it's fine, and they are willing to pay more for handcrafted clothes rather than buying from sweatshops that is mass production. And with AI, if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. But you can still have mass production. Then again, if you value crafts or you value experiences, then we'll just shift into something else. And I believe that with AI coming in and these massive layoffs, it's more a cultural shift and a cultural problem than a technological problem. So people have to think now, what do I want to do? Not in that sense that I will graduate from Harvard, then I'll get into some big company, and then I'll be set for life. Because we know that probably not. Probably AI will do it better than you do. So the question is, what do I want to do, and how can AI, like any different tool, can help me,
You can get a side job.
or a bunch of them, like
Yeah, because you have more free time. AI will do stuff for you, so you can do what you really like
yeah,
instead of doing some routine things.
That's what we did. Like you have Rockstep, we have Startup Radar. It's a
Exactly, yeah.
thing that is like, we need this, and now we can do it easily.
So people can make money out of their passion as opposed to seeing work as something that's kind of dull, dreary, and something you have to do 9 to 5, 5 days a week. There's a change in focus then. There's more people can actually do what they want and actually sort of
Be happier.
indulge all the things and hopefully be happier. Yeah, yeah. And have more flexibility while they're doing it as well.
Yeah, and I value flexibility because I have 2 kids, and I just like that I can be flexible.
Yeah.
And spend more time with them instead of, So yeah, I really hope we will move towards that.
And what's the sort of the blocking element for that? Because we're hearing the technology's there. Is it the social mindset? Is it some of the laws and policy that's preventing this? What's the blockage, would you say, at the moment on these fields?
I think it's uncertainty, financial uncertainty, because people are not willing to just, abandon their 9 to 5 jobs and to pursue something. But if they had more free time and maybe means how to actually monetize their talents with very easy tools, how to invoice and get paid and get their taxes sorted out without actually spending 1 hour a day on, Excel sheets or talking or arguing with the accountant. So I think if we do it from the top management to the bottom, then we'll see overall increase in happiness.
Well, this sounds like a good place to start, that we can have this as a starting point. This increase in sort of, monetize your talents, I think, is probably a great thing to take forward as well, that we have the opportunities, and hopefully the mindset has changed along with sort of the technology, so that we can have people indulging themselves in terms of what they're good at and what they enjoy, as opposed to what they're forced to do just to pay the bills.
Yeah, I also want to touch base on gray economy and how to fight that. I
Yes.
just want to give you one example about Netflix and pirate movies. So people used to download pirate movies, and they were pretty happy with that. But then Netflix arrived, which asked them to pay something around €5 per month. And people realized, oh, that's not that so much. I can easily switch. And as you can see, Netflix has increased their price during the years. Now it's 12 or maybe more if you're using family plan. But what I want to say with this is that if we introduce a very simple system how to switch from gray economy to actually get your taxes paid, and maybe we can start with smaller percentage for instance, people working at cafes who want to receive tips, dog walkers, nannies. If a neighbor comes and helps me, if I can pay him with my card and have tax automatically collected, maybe it's 5% or 10%. But I would be ready to, pay 5% and use actually card payments than cash payments, which state doesn't see and actually misses out on millions in tax revenue. So I think technology and platforms like Netflix can bring us out of the gray area into the white area.
Okay, so out of the shadow economy is one of the areas that we can look at as well in terms of bringing things forward. Yeah, that's excellent. In terms of, I'm just thinking of this of the Slido piece here, just in the element. I know that there's certain comments and questions that had come in before, Anna. Can we address some of those to the panel at the moment on this front? So, okay, how do we implement a solid setup for people to pay taxes on more undercover platform work like streaming or mentioned OnlyFans? Martin's first. I'm not saying you're on OnlyFans, Martins. I'm just saying that I'd like you to answer the question.
I had a question from one person present here. He knows a girl who earns 5,000 a month, but she lives in Thailand and she doesn't want to pay taxes here. Probably, I don't know why, but she just chooses different lifestyle. But I think that first of all, we need to create a kind of digital passport or browser plugin or whatever you call it, that would identify your tax residency based on your location, based on where you actually pay for rent and utilities and etc. And then also, which would automatically calculate how much tax do you own, I mean, in terms of income tax, but also social benefits in the country you prepare to spend your pension, or so I don't know if it's a plugin like a MetaMask for crypto wallets, but there should be some new innovation in this space. And I know that 27 European countries will never agree on one framework for gig workers and maybe creative workers, highly skilled digital freelancers, which I would call them content creators, or just give them opportunity to do tax and social insurance payments voluntarily. Like, why not? Because we have Indexo pension fund, third level pension fund, where you can pay money, input money yourselves. In America, they also have such system. So yeah, these are just two ideas, but I'm not the expert here.
In my opinion, I like the example of convenience very much, because the same happened to music. Remember DC++, LimeWare, and all of your virus-infected computers. So when streaming like Spotify came up, it's just more convenient. So if we make a system that is more convenient than not paying taxes, then because for me it's Abillio. I hate getting cash for anything and anywhere, because I hate to carry it, I hate to forget it, I hate to and for me it's convenient to even, I don't know, do not have a bank card because it's somewhere in the wallet, somewhere home, because I can pay with my phone. And so it's all about convenience. And other than that, I got to know so much about OnlyFans today that I think I should make an account.
If there's one thing we can take out of this, then Igor, please go ahead with that one. Let us know how it goes.
And watch your coding.
Yeah. I think why do I post it on LinkedIn if I can have a bunch of fans who are interested in coding?
Absolutely, I think we could take that forward. The interesting angle also, I think, from this is the development of individuals as well who are demanding this kind of lifestyle and way of working. So it'll probably be like user-led in a lot of these things as well. So we're talking about sort of the tax code authorities. They'll probably have to adapt to the reality and actually make it more simple and convenient, given the fact that's the way that people are moving. And if they don't, they're going to miss more and more of these revenues. So it's kind of forced on them to actually sort of change and adapt to the reality that's there.
Yeah, people are lazy, so they will choose the path of least resistance. And if it's a subscription-based tax model, then they will choose that. Yeah. That's for sure. But yeah, why not let entrepreneurs like Abillio, like us, do that? Yeah. So I think there's gonna if you also, European digital wallet is going to be issued in 2026 with digital euro, which will also hold information, your medical information, your university information. So why not also implement your tax information, and maybe DSE 7 reports already could be implemented into that one. And yeah, maybe let entrepreneurs do that instead of do big tenders and find someone who will basically not do the right job for big money.
Exactly.
So yeah, laissez-faire. That's my point.
And it's clearly the approach. This comes from entrepreneurs and the business community. It's not coming from the public sector to actually solve these issues in any sort of realistic way. So that partnership and that dialogue is something that needs to be open and needs to be thought about in more detail. Yeah. Igor, from your perspective, what are the sort of the next big trends that are coming in terms of jobs, the labor market, and how this is facilitating how the future of work is going to operate?
I'm not so good at future predicting, and people ask me how now you're working with AI for like 10 years, but my life isn't symmetrical. It's not like in 5 years I'm going to have another COVID, right? Maybe sooner, but then again, I can't predict. We have to just move with the flow. People have to accept that you have to learn a bunch of stuff if you haven't so far. Then again, why would he start learning if the technology is changing so quickly that he can just wait for a year or two and start living in the new reality with new hardware, right? Because for a few years we noticed how crucial is it to write great prompts to LLMs to get a great result. Then again, why wouldn't the UI change? Why wouldn't it change? And this prompt engineering skill in our lifetime, it could be a very, very small part, because we get to what's the most convenient way to bring information? Like, we're not texting in some sense, right? We're talking. So maybe this AI with new infused models that come, which are spun out daily, they're getting better. There's a high chance that we will be talking to AI rather than typing stuff to it in, like, I don't know, September, June, I'm not sure. So regards what's going to happen next, no clue. Let's stick around long enough to find out. What I believe is we are going to have a bunch of changes, because technology trends in 2022 were way different than they were in 23. And one of those was storing data on DNA, because in a cubic centimeter of DNA, we can store like a gajillion of petabytes of something. And the easiest way to extract DNA to store data was from bananas. So yeah. And now there are companies called Datana or Datana.com, some shit like that, data on DNA or something like that, which are still pursuing the idea that we should move from silicon to other storage spaces, which will take up less energy. When that happens, I'm not sure where we'll be in October, November, or in 5 years.
You'll be talking to the blob on your table.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe I'm infused in some AR glasses, which we know that Facebook has with Ray-Ban, right? But it's not convenient enough yet.
But this is also going to mean us as individuals need to continue looking at reskilling and upskilling to stay relevant, that our knowledge, skills, and expertise are valuable to the marketplace as well.
Or maybe go to woods and farm for ourselves. I'm not sure.
or do some craft jobs, like learn ceramics or woodwork, because not everyone is built for technologies.
Okay. So there will be place for everyone, though, within this. There's the possibilities.
Just give them chance how to earn money legally. So it will spawn new professions and crafts.
Excellent. Anna, there's no more questions from the floor. So with that, I'd like to thank Igor and Mārtiņš for the inputs and the thoughts that you've been able to share with us here, and look forward to the networking opportunities now afterwards, as we can have a discussion. Or maybe we should have a bit of a group photo as well. What do you think, Mārtiņš? That'd be quite nice.
Yeah, I can do that.
Get everyone up so we can take a picture and then take things from there. Yeah, brilliant.